Monk has been my main job for the past 7 years or so. I started playing this job since patch 2.2 in 2014, but did not start raiding with it until Alexander Gordius back in Heavensward. Since then, I've cleared every savage and ultimate fight from that point on with Monk. I've pretty much played every iteration of this job before, and been through the good and the mostly bad times, let's be honest. Before I start talking about what Monk is now, I would like to talk about what it once was, as this job has had quite the turbulent history. In a realm reborn, it was great, provided very good damage, reducing magic damage from the enemy with Dragon Kick's intelligence down debuff, and could take hits with ease thanks to good defense values and Fists of Earth. But when Dragoon magic defense fixes were implemented to Final Coil, and the introduction of Ninja arrived in 2.4 and brought Trick Attack with it, that's when things started to make a turn for the worse, because this was when people started to think more about comp synergy and playing around raid damage buffs. Heavensward arrived, and Monk was completely shunned due to multiple factors: bad TP economy, high enmity generation, no raid damage buff, the new Dark Knight also providing an intelligence down debuff, Dragoon providing its piercing down debuff for physical ranged jobs, and a raid damage buff with the new Battle Litany, and Ninja receiving amazing new enmity manipulation tools, Shadewalker and Smokescreen, while still providing TP generation with gold, and as ever, the glorious Trick Attack. With Alexander Gordius and Midas to a lesser extent having high DPS checks, comp synergy was even more sought after. Hard to argue for Monk with all this stacked up against it. In Stormblood 4.0, it finally received its own raid damage buff with Brotherhood, but it only affected physical damage, and received Riddle of Fire, which granted a huge damage buff but also slowed down your GCD by 15%. Weird. Although the job was fine damage wise, its playstyle changes were not well received by the majority. In 4.2, the Tornado Kick rotation was born due to massive oversights by the devs. While many expert Monk players enjoyed this iteration of the job, it was unintentional and certainly raised the skill ceiling significantly. In 4.2 also, Brotherhood finally affected the Monk itself, because that makes complete sense. Shadowbringers is here, and what the Monk gets? A buff to Fist of Fire, an AoE chakra spender in the form of Enlightenment, Grease Lightning 4, the greatest skill of all time, Anatman, and Six-Sided Star. Grease Lightning 4 was a requested addition, but its implementation could be better. Six-Sided Star, I'd argue, was a great addition, as it made the maintenance of Grease Lightning a lot more bearable during downtime. However, its usefulness as a maintenance tool would greatly diminish in future patches. And Anatman introduced arguably the most jankiest shit this game has to offer: the Tick Timer Opener. Despite all of this, Monk did great damage, but damage alone is not enough to get people to play a job. Eden's Gate Savage, released in 5.05 alongside a slew of amazing updates to Monk: Mantra Radius buff, Riddle of Fire slowdown gone, Form Shift could now refresh Grease Lightning, and Riddle of Earth provided a 30-second true north every minute. Now the jank was still in full swing with Anatman, but for those who were brave, or stupid, enough to stick with Monk, we will soon find out how much of a monster it was in Eden's Gate. This will all quickly change with the introduction of the 5.1 Ninja rework, bringing Ninja back on the map with incredible force. Things would stagnate from this point up until 5.4, which introduced yet another Monk rework. This was intended to be part of a bigger rework which would arrive with Endwalker, but was too far away at the time. This update pretty much changed every facet of Monk, as its end goal was to make Grease Lightning something that was permanently active instead of something to maintain. This was a good design philosophy, as Monk has been burdened with too many skills over the years that were simply tasked to help you maintain Grease Lightning, which got in the way of more interesting design that the devs could come up with. They succeeded in doing this, and it was a great foundation. However, since maintaining Grease Lightning was such an integral part of the identity of Monk, Removing the need to do so left the job in a very bare bones and boring state. Monk players would hope that with the arrival of Endwalker, some more meat will be added to the job. Now, why have I said all of this? Because I believe that Endwalker Monk is the best iteration this job has ever been, and I think it's important to understand the long road Monk has gone through to reach a version of itself that feels like the devs finally sat down and understood what they wanted to accomplish with this job. Now, is it flawless? No. But frankly, I've never complained less when it comes to Monk. Monk has always been a job that has fared better during leveling, as it tends to unlock a more complete kit earlier compared to other jobs, and Endwalker Monk takes this to the next level. Now, some feel like Monk not drastically changing when leveling up is a bad thing, but I personally disagree. Frankly, the earlier jobs can unlock their main functions, the better. I find it very annoying to downsick and miss integral parts of a job's kit. I will now go over what Monk is like at the various level caps and give my thoughts on it. At level 50, Monk receives all of its standard 6 single targets and 3 AoE GCDs that you're familiar with. Grease Lightning 3 is also activated. Perfect Balance is unlocked, but now also has 2 charges and is on a 40-second cooldown. But without the Blitz system, you would just be using this to perform more Oppo GCDs for extra damage. Now, what are the big revisions? Meditation is now unlocked at level 15, and the Deep Meditation trait that grants an 80% chance to open a chakra with a crit is now unlocked at level 38. Alongside this change comes the return of 2 classic Monk skills, Steel Peak and Howling Fist, with the former being a downgraded Forbidden Chakra and the latter being a downgraded Enlightenment. Being able to use chakra skills and generate chakra during combat at this level helps make the job much more engaging to play, and it also allows Monk to have access to an AoE chakra spender much earlier, which was not the case until level 74 back in Shadowbringers. The other big addition is Thunderclap. You will have 2 charges at this level. Now, Thunderclap is frankly incredible. One of the best gap closers in the game easily. It grants so much mobility and flexibility, and since it's solely a movement skill with no damage attached to it, chances are you will always have it up for when you need it. I'm definitely glad Shodataka died for this, I'll say that much. Level 52 still unlocks Form Shift, which still grants Formless Shift to self, allowing you to execute any weapon skill regardless of form. Although now forms last 30 seconds instead of 15 seconds, and Steel Peak upgrades to the Forbidden Chakra at level 54 via the Steel Peak Mastery trait. Now from 55 to 59 is a dead zone, with no new skills or traits unlocked. However, at level 60, Monk unlocks its other core component, Masterful Blitz, via the enhanced Perfect Balance trait. Masterful Blitz also unlocks Elixir Field, Flint Strike, Celestial Revolution, and Tornado Kick. Quite a lot of new skills unlocked at the same time to make up for the leveling dead zone. Now, I've already talked about Masterful Blitz in detail in my previous Monk videos, but I will say that level 60 Monk is where its core rotation starts to reach completion. As I've said earlier, it is up to you to decide whether the lack of significant change to the job from this point is a benefit or a detriment to its design. From 60 to 70, Monk only gets 3 new skills, Riddle of Earth, Riddle of Fire, and Brotherhood. Not much to say here, as Riddle of Fire and Brotherhood still function the same as they did in 5.4 onwards, but some revisions have been made, such as Riddle of Fire being 10% weaker from 25 to 15%, but now on 60 seconds, and Brotherhood going from 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Riddle of Earth, however, I have some stuff to say, because this is where we get to the elephant in the room. Monk has now lost 4 positionals out of 6 in Endwalker. Initially we believed that it was only Twin Snakes and True Strike that lost them, but now we also don't have positional requirements on Dragon Cake and Bootshine. This caused quite the uproar in the Monk community prior to the release of Endwalker, as it's a drastic change for a job that is known for being the positional job since its inception. However, Now that I've got to play the job itself, I realize that its skill ceiling lies elsewhere, and I will get to that when we talk about optimization. In any case, back to Riddle of Earth. It's now solely a damage mitigation tool, as its positional nullification effect is no longer needed. Unfortunately, the tooltip is worded very poorly, and I would like to clarify what it does. The tooltip makes it sound like it gives 3 separate stacks of 20% mitigation, and these 3 stacks compile on top of each other and decay in efficacy with every stack lost. This is incorrect. Riddle of Earth simply provides a flat 20% mitigation for the next 3 GCDs, and that's all. Not as exciting as having a 50-something% mitigation tool on the onset, but it's still an incredibly good skill, and your healers will thank you for it. At level 72, Monk unlocks Riddle of Wind, a new skill that reduces auto attack delay by 50%. This buff is deceptively powerful, as auto attacks are where most of Monk's damage comes from, only bested by leaden boot shines. So it is good. However, it's boring. Unlike Riddle of Fire and Brotherhood, where once activated you have to consider the amount of GCDs that can fit in the windows and which GCDs should be used, Riddle of Wind is pretty much fire and forget. Initially it was supposed to grant you haste as well, but the devs said that I would make the job too fast. Although I do agree with this, as having fluctuating GCD speeds throughout your rotation could make double weaving and buff optimization frustrating, at the same time the skill just feels incomplete. The conundrum is that I don't really know what else they can do with it. Maybe forego the whole auto attack speed increase and make it into a crit buff of sorts, like the now dead internal release perhaps? Who knows? At level 74, Howling Fist upgrades to Enlightenment via the Howling Fist Mastery trait. At level 76, Grease Lightning 4 is also unlocked, which now also improves Discipline Fist, the new name for Twin Snake's damage buff by the way, from 10% to 15%. Grease Lightning 4's extra haste now allows Monk to fit more GCDs into his buff windows that were otherwise not possible with Grease Lightning 3, so it does provide a change to its gameplay. Anatman unlocks at level 78. I honestly do not understand why they insist on Anatman's continued existence. Even when Grease Lightning was a thing, Anatman was still not even that useful as a maintenance tool, as Form Shift also refreshed Grease Lightning on demand from 5.05 onwards. Arguably, the only times it was useful was to perform the super scuffed Take Timer opener, which was killed in 5.1 anyway, when Anatman changed from an OGCD to a GCD, and building back up to Grease Lightning 4 after a tornado kick during significant downtime. But that situation was so niche that it's not even worth mentioning. Maybe if you're going for a 100% run, you could get a use out of the extra 20 potency from that extra True Strike Anatman grants you, but come on now, just let it die, SE, just let it die. Six-Sided Star is your level 80 skill. It's a great downtime tool and has always been and will always be useful, and I will forever stand by that statement. It may be niche, but when used properly it's basically free damage. Now I did say that Monk is basically complete at level 60, but at level 80 it's truly complete, cause everything it receives from level 80 to 90 does not change how Monk plays at all. In this level range, 3 skills are upgraded. Arm of the Destroyer into Shadow of the Destroyer. With the Oppo bonus, it's essentially an AoE boot shine, and looks way cooler than Arm of the Destroyer to boot. Flint Strike upgrades to Rising Phoenix. It's functionally the same skill, but Rising Phoenix also looks way cooler and does an extra 100 potency of damage from 600 to 700. And lastly, the level cap skill, Phantom Rush. It's functionally the same as Tornado Kick, however, it does 150 more potency of damage from 850 to 1000, and it also has less AoE damage fall off from 70 to 50. And once again, It looks cool, and we all know style points matter a lot. We also receive a third charge of Thunderclap, making it even more versatile, and Brotherhood receives an enhancement trait at level 88 which guarantees that your own GCDs will grant you chakra during the Brotherhood window. Now, this comes with some negatives. Brotherhood only grants chakra upon damage application, and depending on the skill used, this will cause delays on when you gain the chakra. Furthermore, when you crit, you will gain 2 chakra, one from Deep Meditation and the other from Enhanced Brotherhood, but they are not granted simultaneously. There's a slight delay between the two. This will only further exacerbate the issue of chakra overflow. Now once again, I am pleading SE, just let us hold up to 10 chakra. Endwalker added a second charge to so many skills, but here we are, still suffering from overflow. Granted, I will say that chakra overflow is not as egregious as it once was, as monks only OGCDs now are their buffs and forbidden chakra. And with that, those are all my thoughts on Monk's entire kit. Now for the fun stuff. At a basic level, Monk is incredibly easy to play. Do your 2 positionals, use your buffs on cooldown, spend your chakra, build Luna and Solar Nadi, and then do a Phantom Rush and repeat. However, when you go deeper, you will find a job that allows for a lot of skill expression due to how flexible its burst windows can potentially be and how much choice you have when playing the job on a fight-to-fight basis. I'll try to simplify things as much as possible. However, if you want to know everything about Monk optimization, then I highly suggest reading through Perfect Balance's Endwalker Monk guide, link below in the description. Monk has 2 standard openers, the default Lunar Solar Opener and the double Solar Opener. Both openers also have early variations which require a suboptimal use of buffs to counteract odd phase and kill timings that would otherwise let you lose buff usage. So Monk really has 4 potential openers overall. Lunar Solar provides maximum usages of Phantom Rush and is best used for fights with an unknown kill time. However, Phantom Rush will be perpetually stuck in your 1-minute burst windows, which are weaker. This opener also allows you to be flexible with where you do a Rising Phoenix in 2-minute burst windows, as you can do a Solar first, Lunar second burst, or a Lunar first, Solar second burst, allowing for flexibility with GCDs. Double Solar is recommended for when you're more comfortable with a fight's intricacies and have an idea of what kill time you will achieve, while knowing you will not lose a Phantom Rush by the end. This opener requires doing 2 Rising Phoenixes, which seems odd, but it is intentional, as this will let your Phantom Rush drift into your much stronger 2-minute burst windows. Double Solar's 2-minute burst windows are not as flexible as the 2-minute burst windows of the Lunar Solar Opener, as you will always be doing a Phantom Rush and Rising Phoenix instead. This does not mean it's inflexible. When setting up a Phantom Rush, you ideally want to perform 3 Oppo GCDs, but since Phantom Rush can be activated with any Beast Chakra order, for scenarios where you would want to burst immediately after downtime, you can still put up a Discipline Fist and Demolish instead and still perform a Phantom Rush. Monk has 3 rotations to choose from. The Looping rotation, which requires a few minor rotational errors to perform a natural 2-minute loop. The rotational errors in question are 1. Forcing a Twin Snake's use after Rising Phoenix in the opener, and after Elixir Field in even minute burst windows instead of using the Formula Shift gained after the Blitz on an Oppo GCD to facilitate the loop. And 2. Slightly adjusting your rotation in odd minute burst windows where your Discipline Fist does not naturally refresh right before a Demolish refresh prior to entering a Perfect Balance window. If you're meant to do a true strike instead, then you would fall to Twin Snake's hero as well. This uses the Lunar Solar Opener and is the standard rotation. The so-called Optimal Drift rotation, which plays around your Corel GCDs, your first Snap Punch, your second Snap Punch, and Demolish, to provide a multitude of even burst windows to choose from. This makes even minute burst windows significantly more adaptable depending on fight mechanics and downtime, but it is much harder to perform as it requires a lot of foresight, and as the name suggests, it is mainly for optimized scenarios. This also uses the Lunar Solar Opener. And lastly, the Double Solar Rotation, which requires you to create a static sequence of GCDs by clipping Demolish 6 seconds early once every 6 minutes from your first 2-minute burst window. As mentioned before, this rotation will allow you to use Phantom Rush and Rising Phoenix in even minute burst windows, allowing for more DPS compared to the other two rotations if it doesn't result in a Phantom Rush loss. This uses the Double Solar Opener. The DPS discrepancies between these three rotations are not significant whatsoever, so it is recommended to just use the looping rotation until you're ready to optimize a fight. Now I'm gonna probably stop here. I'm not gonna go into further detail as this video will become way too long. So once again, if you want to know everything about the logic behind these openers and rotations, then please read the guide. The intricacy of Monk now stems from the relationship between your Discipline Fist and Demolish timers, and your sequence of GCDs that allow you to perform 1 or 2 blitzes depending on if it's an odd or even minute burst window, while not letting your Discipline Fist fall off and refreshing your Demolish under Riddle of Fire and other buffs. 6.0 Monk is quite the far cry of 5.4 Monk, as 5.4 Monk was incredibly static with its burst windows, as it required you to set up your GCDs in a specific order, while combating drift by performing techniques such as the Dragon Kick filler if your Riddle of Fire was not up on time before a Twin Snake's refresh, so that you could then enter a 6 GCD Opal Opal spam window and refresh Demolish twice under Riddle of Fire. This is not the case with 6.0 Monk, as with 6.0 Monk, your GCD order is in such flux thanks to the nature of blitzes and formless shift that it's possible to build your Nadi in a multitude of ways depending on the fight, and because of this GCD flux, it is no longer possible to refresh your Demolish twice in a Riddle of Fire window, allowing for even more flexibility. If 5.4 Monk had only 2 positionals, then yeah, I would be pissed. But I do not miss them as much anymore with 6.0 Monk, as there's all this other stuff to consider during play. In closing, I really love this iteration of Monk, and although it has some grievances still, such as the continued existence of an Atman and Chakra Overflow, they are nowhere near as annoying enough to negate the good. I do feel like it may be currently too strong, as it's basically the only DPS that can go toe to toe with Reaper right now. Although that seems to be more of a problem with Reaper being a bit too strong. I expect Samurai, Dragoon, and Ninja to get buffed, or Monk and Reaper will get nerfed in 6.05. Reaper should do more personal damage than Monk since Arcane Circle is weaker than Brotherhood by 2%, but Monk and Reaper should not be top 200 rate DPS. DPS talk aside, the job is very fun, and that's already a big win in my book. Well done, SE. It only took about 7 years, but we finally got there.